I might grab a bat, I don't know, my rap, my blood boils over like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show. So have you ever felt betrayed? Switches how you see things, realize something needs change. Cause I know you got me up, let me show you what's up. Cause enough is enough.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack 2022 Fantasy Football Team Previews. Tonight we are covering the Washington Commanders, and with me to do that is Dave Eddy. And let's just kick things right off here and go into the quarterback room. Replacing Tyler Heinicke is Carson Wentz, who they traded for and took on that huge salary, and who knows. Anyway, fantasy people do not agree that he is a good quarterback, and probably rightfully so. Overall 210, QB 27. They even drafted one-time Heisman hopeful at the beginning of last season, Sam Howell from North Carolina. I mean, look, one QB leagues, obviously no, but like in a super flex or a 2 QB league, is Carson Wentz somebody that you would potentially want to take on as a QB2 for you?
I would actually. I have always been kind of a fan of Carson Wentz, and I get the reason that he gets so far knocked down because he does some weird stuff for the football sometimes. But if you were to simply kind of just forget about those just random weird things he does and look at his numbers, just his statistics. Last season wasn't that bad, man. He threw for over 3,500 yards. He had 27 touchdowns and just 7 interceptions. And that was a running football team.
Yes, it was.
They didn't have I don't even think that they had the same offensive weapons that he has now at Washington. I think Terry McLaurin is one of the, if not the most underrated receiver in football. They've got great pass-catching backs, maybe the best in the league. They've got a decent tight end. They just drafted a top receiver. I think Carson. I would be just fine with Carson Wentz as my QB2.
Yeah, it's tough for me, man. I think he's. I mean, I've got him right around this ranking. I feel like he's not very efficient with the ball right now. He's struggling to score touchdowns. And granted, I know that was a very run-first offense in Indy, rightfully so. But, you know, I will say this. He finished QB 17 in points per game last year. So I guess he, you know, is arguably better than that. But, I mean, there's just something to... you know, this offense not having really much of an identity, in my opinion. Do they want to be a running team? Do they want to be a passing team? I'm not really sure. You know, they loaded up on running backs. They've got Terry McLaurin. They drafted I think a pretty good rookie, but possibly overdrafted him too. But I'm not really sure they've got a great identity on offense, and I think that's going to hurt Wentz, and he is just clearly not the same since his injury. So, yeah, I can't really buy into it, and unfortunately, so I would hope you can find better than him as your second quarterback for a 2 QB league. But let's move it on here to that running back room. We've got Antonio Gibson, overall 33, running back 17. J.D. McKissic at 124 and 46, who there was rumors he was going to sign elsewhere, but then came back at the last second. They drafted Brian Robinson out of Alabama. He's now sitting at 176 and 58. They still got Jarrett Patterson. Jonathan Williams is there. Look, there's rumors, you know, or coach speak, right, that they want to use Gibson and Brian Robinson like they did in Carolina with Williams and Stewart, right? So if that is true, is Gibson overrated at this point? And on the flip side, is Brian Robinson severely underrated because those two were dynamite together, man.
No, I think that that's Antonio Gibson's backfield, and unless he either gets hurt, obviously, or he just really underperforms. I, I could argue that, you know, given the volume, which you could see from him even this year, he could be a top 10 back without too much trouble. We'll have to see what happens, but no, I don't think that Antonio Gibson is inflated at the moment. With that being said, I don't mind handcuffing him with a Brian Robinson because I think that he's very interesting. But Antonio Gibson is head and shoulders the best running back in on this team, and it's just not even close.
I mean, interestingly enough, though, man, like Gibson only saw 53% of the snap share in this running back room between him and McKissic, right? McKissic saw
Wow.
38.5%. So now you're adding in Brian Robinson. So, I mean, he barely had over 50% of the snap share last year. And McKissic was injured at times. And so that's scary. They bring in Robinson, who they clearly like and want to use. I'm not sure it's going to be as much as what they're saying. I don't believe that for a second for some reason, but just that little thing in the back of your mind, like that puts doubt in my mind, and I'm thinking, I don't know that Gibson is going to surpass much of this RB17 ranking that he's got right now.
You got to be careful though when you pick out a specific stat and use it to ultimately make a decision, because part of the reason that part of the reason that the snap count looks disproportionate is because JD McKissic is the best pass catching running back in football. And when Washington is trailing, you're going to see McKissic on the field a lot more than you should be. Now, if there was no McKissic, Antonio Gibson is a absolutely fine pass catcher himself, but he's not J.D. McKissic.
But
so I'm not super worried about the snap share.
Well, okay, but do you think they're going to be winning more games this year? More like enough to make Antonio Gibson a top 10 back type of thing? I don't know if Washington's going to be good this year. I really don't.
I don't think that Gibson is necessarily a top 10 back. I think he has the potential to be a top 10 back. But, I mean, where he sits, I am 100% fine with it, and probably a little bit higher than that. I think Wentz is a big upgrade from Taylor Heineke.
Yeah.
I think that this offense is just fine. And if things are going reasonably well, I think you're going to see Antonio Gibson be the clear lead back.
Here's another crazy stat. So in 2020, when they were winning more games, McKissic actually had 58% of the snap share, and Gibson had 37%.
Hold on, but what year is that from?
2020. That was when they did win. They won the division.
Listen, man, that's 2 years ago. I mean,
I'm just saying. You were saying when they were winning the games.
Well, Antonio Gibson wasn't as well thought of at that point either, though. Antonio
Gibson
is a much more heralded back right now. He's a much better back. I'm not worried about 2020 stats right now when it comes to snap count.
I'm just saying 2 years in a row, he didn't get the workload that we all hoped, and he was efficient with it in 2020. He wasn't efficient with it last year, and that does put a little doubt in my mind, especially when they draft a running back where they did. But moving on here, receivers, Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 43, wide receiver 18, Jahan Dotson, 152, 56. They got Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, Cam Sims, Antonio Gandy-Golden. This is Terry McLaurin's room, right? I mean, I think the quarterback upgrade is going to do him wonders, in my opinion. I just, how much do you think do you think he's underrated at this point?
Oh man, I still do. Yeah, I still really do. And I also think, I mean, I'll hit on the top three guys. So McLaurin, arguably most underrated receiver in football. I don't think that Wentz is going to hurt that at all. I think Jahan Dotson is probably overrated, especially maybe for fantasy purposes. I think he's a fine receiver. I just don't think we're going to see it from him immediately, that's for sure. And so because of that, I would take Curtis Samuel over Jahan Dotson. I think if we can see him healthy and on the field, I think he probably ends up your relatively clear second best receiver on this team and should see decent targets. Now, what he does with them, I don't know. But that's kind of how I see that wide receiver room playing out.
Yeah, I feel like Wentz also likes to hyper target one main guy in his offenses with the receivers.
Well, that's McLaurin.
So it will easily be McLaurin. I mean, last year it was Pittman.
Well, Kenny
Now,
didn't have a choice either. I mean, who else?
right now, I mean, the last years in Philly didn't have much of a chance, but when Jeffrey was the guy, he was the guy, right? Yeah. So in Philly with Wentz there, so I kind of do think he likes to hyper target one guy, and I think McLaurin is head and shoulders above the rest of these guys and could get hyper targeted like Pittman did last year. So I really do like it. And yeah, I could see myself having quite a few shares of McLaurin this year. So finishing off here with the tight ends, and we've got Logan Thomas sitting here at wires, overall 143, tight end 20. John Bates is in town too. But Logan Thomas, right, just a couple of years ago was a guy who finished in the top 10 for tight ends, caught a lot of touchdowns that season, but, was still very, very good for them. Can he get back to that?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, Logan Thomas, what he really is he's an athlete, right? And he's an athlete that kind of just naturally fits in at that tight end position. And I think that they've got enough other targets, on the field that when everyone or just about everyone is healthy, Logan Thomas is kind of like a red zone kind of a guy, but Terry McLaurin is a superior red zone guy. So he kind of is just going to pick up the scraps and, absolutely is just a touchdown dependent guy. I mean, just 1,000,000%.
Yeah, I mean, like I like Logan Thomas a lot as an athlete, somebody who can get over. He's a big dude. I mean, he's 6'6". 250. I mean, you're talking like red zone target. Like, just go box somebody out in the end zone. Like, that could be a big role for him. And look, I mean, Wentz is used to having good tight ends to throw to, so maybe he can learn to like Logan Thomas as well. I don't hate it. I'm not drafting him, but he's somebody who I wouldn't bat an eye if he could repeat what he did in 2020. The biggest concern for him is obviously his health, those concussions. That's scary. He takes one wrong hit, he's done for, man. Like, I don't think he's going to return. Who knows if he should actually really be playing this year with, he's had 2 or 3 concussions in the last year and a half. That's scary stuff, man. But hopefully he stays healthy and that doesn't happen to him. And he can kind of bounce back to his 2020 ways. But that is it for the Washington Commanders. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Hit that like button, that subscribe button, leave those comments, and check out the rest of our team previews here on the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel. See ya.